Brace yourselves, winter is coming. What the writers of Game of Thrones didn't tell you is that Bran was actually in a wheelchair because he didn't trim his balls with Manscaped. Not sure what to get as a gift for the holidays? Well, Manscaped is the ultimate gift, and they're here to change the men's grooming game. And you can get 20% off plus free shipping if you use code OfficeBlokes at manscaped.com. I once used some traditional hair clippers to trim downstairs and cut me open like hot butter, like a knife through hot butter. Time to gear up, get yourself the perfect gift of shaving this holiday season. I'm talking about Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0. The Performance Package 4.0 is the best in the business. The hygiene bundle includes the Lawnmower 4.0, Weed Whacker, Boxers, Travel Kit. Have you got smelly feet? Manscaped are now offering the foot duster, foot deodorant. So anyway, 20% off plus free shipping with discount code OfficeBlokes at the checkout.
Do it.
Yeah.
During the winter, you may be spending more time inside with your balls. Might as well make them beautiful.
Why not?
Get 20% off and free shipping with code OfficeBlokes at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code OfficeBlokes. Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes Reacts. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Oversimplified.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true.
That's simple.
We are the Office Blokes. Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's all simple, isn't it?
It's very simple.
We've not done Oversimplified for absolutely ages.
It's been a long time.
I think the last one we did was Prohibition, and we did it on the beer. So we had a table full of beer.
Yeah, correct.
And I learned a lot from that Prohibition one, to be fair. There was loads I didn't know about it. I could have assumed it was the angry wives that wanted Prohibition to begin with, but yeah, it was an interesting one. They make amazing videos, don't they?
Really good.
So
I've diverted a lot of people to these videos to sort of say, if you want to learn about the First and Second World Wars or whatever, go and watch it on Oversimplified. It just gives you a better education on it.
It does. Entertaining at the same time,
exactly.
Really good.
That's the point, isn't it? It's entertaining. I've had a few drunken rants about Oversimplified, saying that's how you should be teaching kids.
It is. That's a great way to do it.
It's great. So we'll get into it. Oversimplified, the Cold War, Part 1. Let's do this.
I've decided that in order to sell more merch, I should do a face reveal wearing some of it. So are you ready? Here we go. Boom. New minimalist and Cold War merch available now, and get the new limited edition Churchill character pin before it sells out, with more characters coming in the future. Link in the description down below.
That's pretty cool.
The year is 1917. Fighting rages on the Eastern Front of the First World War. Both Germany and Russia are on the brink of collapse. Soldier, I need you to bring me this man. Got it. Found him, sir. What? No, not Lenin. Lenin, the Russian communist. What? Why would I need
a minute.
Lenin, the Russian communist. He was exiled to Switzerland. You know what? I'll do it myself. Who wants to start a revolution? The Germans put Lenin on a train and sent him all the way back to Russia, hoping he and his mates would create an internal crisis. And create an internal crisis they did. The government was overthrown, and Lenin was in charge. He immediately pulled out of the First World War, made the country communist, started a 3-year-long civil war, got shot, broke the economy, caused a famine, and then he died. On his deathbed he said,
imagine having that much of a profound effect. Obviously it was right, it wasn't just he turned up and did all that, but just, he's sort of the catalyst for all those events. It's crazy, isn't it? One person in such a vast country like Russia.
It is as well.
Hey man, tell whoever's in charge of giving people jobs not to let that jerk Stalin become the next leader. By the way, who did I put in charge of giving people jobs? That would be Stalin, sir. Stalin was a rising force in the Communist Party. He still had some opponents, but conveniently, all of them were arrested or disappeared. So that was lucky. And so Stalin took over. He implemented his 5-year plans, which transformed the country from an agriculture-based economy to an industrial one. And like Lenin before him, he reigned with terror. Anyone who dared criticize or oppose him would either be killed or left to rot in the horrendous Soviet work camps.
Sounds familiar now, that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you mean?
Well, if you criticise or talk about the opponents, if you talk about the current regime and criticise them,
some things never change, eh? Yeah.
The old Novichok comes out,
doesn't
it?
Arrest the opponents.
Have a swig of that, mate.
Put them in prison.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Have you ever seen some nice spires in Winchester.
Salisbury.
Salisbury.
Salisbury, yeah. I have been to Salisbury and seen that spire, actually. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Right.
Salisbury, anyway.
Salisbury.
Then a short man with a silly mustache tried to take over the world, punched the Russians all the way to Moscow, and then the Russians, with some help from their faithful ally, the Winter, punched them all the way back to Berlin. At this point, being allies, America, the UK, and the Soviet Union were good chums. They held a couple of conferences near the end of the war to decide what would happen next. Hey Stalin, after all your trials and tribulation, you must be pretty happy to be standing here in Berlin. Tsar Alexander made it all the way to Paris. Just give me a second. Hey man, I think something's up with Stalin. I know, right? What should we do? Shall I tell him about the bomb? Yeah, tell him about the bomb. That will scare him. So, we got this crazy new big A-bomb that can destroy an entire city in one go. Yes, my spies told me already. Oh wait, I meant to act surprised. Wow, that's amazing. He already knew. How? Am I sure I want to send nuclear secrets via unsecure public coffee shop Wi-Fi? Am I ever? Does the A stand for atomic or ass? Then America dropped their big A-bomb on Japan, and World War II officially came to an end. Hooray, we won! Okay, so now it's time to establish the New World Order. Stalin, you're in charge of Eastern Europe. Now, we want you to let them all hold elections. Oh yes, of course, elections. And these elections will be free and fair, right? Oh yes, certainly, free and fair. Definitely free and fair. Communist, 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 communist. If that's not free and fair, I don't know what is. Throughout Eastern Europe, Soviet puppet governments were established as a buffer zone between the USSR and the West, with Churchill proclaiming an Iron Curtain had descended across the continent. The relationship between the old allies was deteriorating fast. Over the next few years, the British intervened in the Greek Civil War to prevent a communist takeover. In Turkey, the Russians began demanding more control of Turkey's sea access routes, which prompted the US to send their largest battleship to Turkey for a friendly visit. After World War II, Iran was now occupied by both the Soviets and the British, with an agreement to both pull out once the war was over. The British pulled out. Stalin was like, you know what? I think I might stick around. All in favor of kicking Russia out of Iran? You want to know something? You guys suck. Pressure from the UN forced the Soviets to leave, and with the establishment of NATO, the Soviets had no doubt that the West was out to encircle and destroy them. And America announced the Truman Doctrine, in which they basically said, those guys are not cool, cannot be trusted, and we will do everything we can to prevent the spread of communism around the world. Many viewed this moment as the official declaration of the Cold War. Back in Europe, everyone was living in a...
It's almost like a religious war, isn't it? Because it's a war of ideals, like communism versus democracy. That's what it boils down to.
Political persuasion could be sort of a lot like some sort of...
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's also the dictatorship side that comes in, where it's all one way, isn't it? It's do as we say.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's going to be. And you adhere to it, or you get killed.
Yeah.
Or you get jailed, or whatever it may be.
Imagine how different it'd be now, though. If
it's not different now. It's
No.
fucking exactly the same.
No, I mean, if Russia hasn't gone like that, but they were still our allies, it'd be sort of like, it'd be completely different around the world, wouldn't it?
Who would they?
China be different as well?
If it was NATO and Russia together as allies, the rest of the world would just pale in comparison. We'd become the dictatorship because it'd just be any little country. You just go, even China. You'd be like, China, do this.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's what I mean. Yeah, because where would China stand and all that? That'd be a totally different ball game, wouldn't it?
Well, we're seeing it now with the control of the gas that's coming out of Russia, or passing through Russia and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah, they can turn it on and off whenever they want, can't they? So,
yeah, but I read something saying that Russia aren't actually restricting the gas.
They also said that they didn't kill.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. But
saying and doing are two different things, really, isn't it? Sometimes
I do think there's bollocks on both sides.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there is. We always think we're right and we're upstanding citizens of the world, don't we? But I mean,
it's in our best interests to have an enemy like Russia. I think I think there's certain politicians that want us to be.
Oh yeah,
constantly.
Without doubt. There's a lot of hawks about, isn't there, which like a bit of a.
We're always at war.
A bit of trouble.
It's the phrase, isn't it?
There's always one somewhere, isn't there?
Post-apocalyptic void brought on by the Second World War. Cities reduced to rubble, not enough food. It was terrible. This is great. The more they suffered, the more likely it is they'll turn to communism. Dude, you're really messed up. What's wrong with you? My father used to punish me severely. America realized what was going on and quickly made a move. Under the Marshall Plan, they sent $12 billion to Western Europe for its economic recovery. The countries of Stalin's Eastern Bloc looked on with envy. Hey, Czechoslovakia, you want to come get some economic aid? Yeah, but I have to check with my mom first. Sorry, America. I can't come. This was a full-on economic battle raging between capitalism and communism in Europe. If the Western nations developed faster and better than the East, that would be a defeat for Stalin. So he set up his own rival economic recovery plan, which he called Comecon, and he also set up Cominform, which gave him more political control over the Eastern Bloc. But nowhere did this economic battle rage harder than in the city of Berlin. Caught over 100 miles behind Soviet lines, the city had been divided up between the Allies, and the western segments were still under Western control. East Berliners could travel freely to West Berlin, see the economic prosperity and think, maybe this communism thing ain't so great after all. I'm gonna have fun tonight. You're home.
Yeah.
Oh, Stalin. I was just out with my friends. Friends? You stink of capitalism! You're out engaging in imperialist debauchery again! I swear, Ivan, I can't keep doing this. Stalin wanted the West out, so he said, hey, guess what? I'm blockading all of your supply routes to West Berlin. What are you gonna do about it? I suppose we'll just fly the supplies in.
I watched a documentary on that Berlin airlift. Do you know about it?
Yeah.
Where there's a plane landing something like every 60 seconds carrying supplies.
Wow.
It was literally like that animation, just going just one after another.
I've been to Berlin a few
Yeah.
times, and it's one of the greatest cities you'll visit.
I've never
for
been.
history.
I've never
All
been.
the museums and things like this they tell you about.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I can imagine. I bet it's really interesting there.
And it's the only ones where the Christmas markets stay open until after Christmas Day.
Yeah, it's so miserable, isn't it? I think they finish mid-December in this country, don't they?
They do in Germany.
Yeah. Oh,
Do they?
Yeah, they finish like between the 13th and 18th.
Yeah, ours is like a week or two before, thinking it'll pack up and that's it, isn't it? They're all gone.
I love how it used to be the German markets. Now it's just called the Christmas markets.
Yeah.
All right, Truman, you in this round. The Berlin airlift was an incredible undertaking and a major success for the Western Allies, and Stalin ended his blockade of West Berlin. His aggressive actions worried the West, but not as much as this did. The Soviet Union had developed their very own atomic bomb. The USA no longer had a nuclear monopoly. The world now knew that if a major war broke out between the two superpowers, it would be more destructive than anyone could imagine. So it was comforting when Stalin came out and said that war between the Soviet Union and the West was unlikely. Oh, wait, inevitable. He said it was inevitable.
Shit.
Hey, you know who I haven't checked in on in a while? My good friend China. Whoa! What happened to you? What happened to them was a full-blown civil war that had been going on since 1927. The People's Liberation Army, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, successfully defeated the Republic of China, who fled to Taiwan. The now communist China and the Soviet Union signed a mutual defense treaty. This was terrible news for the West. But wait. There's more. After the Second World War, Korea was divided along the 38th parallel. In the north, the Soviets set up a communist regime. In the south, America set up an anti-communist regime. Both were led by very sweet-looking old men, but don't let that deceive you. They were both ruthless dictators, and both dreamed of reuniting Korea under their own regime. Now that he had the bomb, Stalin was feeling a little more cocky, and he finally gave Kim permission to attack. The North launched a surprise invasion of the South on June 25th, 1950. With Soviet aid, the North Koreans steamrolled through, taking Seoul in just 3 days and replacing one ruthless dictator with another. The UN were freaking out and quickly created an emergency force made up of troops from 16 countries to defend the South. The West still held Busan and made landings at Incheon near Seoul. They pushed the North Koreans out of Seoul, replacing the ruthless dictator that had replaced the first ruthless dictator with the same ruthless dictator that had previously been replaced by the new ruthless dictator. And the West then continued all the way up the Korean peninsula. At this point, China was getting worried that the UN may just keep going. The US had sent this guy to lead the operation. After winning the Pacific Theater of World War II, General Douglas MacArthur's head was big and his balls were bigger. He reassured President Truman that there was absolutely no way at all that the Chinese would ever get involved. Meanwhile, 500,000 Chinese troops were crossing into Korea. Nuke 'em. No. Nuke 'em. No. Ah, come on. You're fired. The US considered the nuclear option, but now that the Soviets also had the bomb, they didn't want to risk all-out global destruction. The communists pushed the West
Isn't it probably a good thing that the Soviets had a nuclear bomb as well, because otherwise America would have probably nuked them.
Well, they always say that's what's kept like world peace for like the last 50, 60 years, don't you? 70 years.
Yeah.
Because of that.
You've got to have fear on both sides, haven't you? Otherwise, you can just nuke indiscriminately whenever there's going to be a war.
Yeah. You could threaten that, then one side's stronger than the other, and they could turn into dictators, couldn't they, suppose, if only one side had it?
I didn't know much about this Korean War. And
no, I wasn't well up on it either.
I knew a guy that fought in it, funnily
really?
enough. He died a couple of years ago now, but I used to drink with him. And the way he talked about it, I never really got it, because we don't learn about this in schools in this country.
Not really, no.
First and Second World War,
And that's
pretty much it, isn't it? And then like you go back to 1066 and the Battle of Hastings and all that sort of stuff. That's all you learn about, really.
Falklands.
I didn't learn about the Falklands
No.
in school.
It was on. It was happening when I was at school.
Well, then it's more relevant, isn't it? But I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah.
Didn't do any lessons on it. Just watch one oversimplified video on the Falklands. Get all kids to watch it.
Yeah.
Just binge the series. That's your history lessons, isn't it?
Indeed.
Back almost to the exact same spot they had all started from, and they ended up in a stalemate, where they remained until both sides finally agreed to work towards a peace settlement in 2018. Back in America, Americans decided they wanted a new president who would be tough on communism, so they elected famed World War II General Eisenhower, who was really hard to draw. It's 1953. Hey Stalin, how you doing? Oh, he's dead. He had a cerebral hemorrhage and his reign of terror kinda came back to bite him in the ass because he had imprisoned all of his best doctors and those that were left were too terrified to treat him. The new leader, Nikita Khrushchev, called a meeting and said, "Hey guys, you know how Stalin was imprisoning and murdering us all for doing basically nothing? Yeah, he was kind of a jerk. I'm really not sure how this is news to you." Khrushchev went on a campaign of de-Stalinization. Statues of Stalin were taken down, Stalingrad was renamed, and Khrushchev announced that he wanted the Soviet people to be happy and would allow greater freedom in the Soviet Union. So how did that work out? Well, an uprising in East Germany was brutally suppressed, a revolution in Hungary was brutally suppressed, and demonstrations in Poland were brutally suppressed. Although he did finally allow some mild reforms. Back in the Soviet Union, he permitted more cultural expression, but then began banning stuff based on his own personal taste. Modern art looks like a child urinated on a canvas. Banned. Jazz music sounds like the feeling of needing to fart. Banned. Your poetry is really depressing. How could anyone in the Soviet Union be depressed?
I think I'm turning into like a communist here now. Turning into
You don't like modern art?
Get rid of modern art and jazz.
Yeah, some of it's a bit
I think
not my cup of tea.
I think there may have been racial connotations with banning jazz.
Hey,
Do you think about it back then?
I like jazz.
No.
It's not the sort of thing I'd listen to on a regular basis, but I do like it.
I think it can be in a bar.
I love
Jazz
it in a
can
bar.
really work.
But I've heard one of the bars in Altrincham. They do jazz there, and that
Where?
live it's pretty opposite, just near the market. Can't remember what it's called now.
Kennedy's?
No, sort of next door to there.
Porter?
No, I can't remember. It'll come to
Morse
me.
beat.
No, it's near. It's around that area.
We're just going to name bars in Altrincham and see how long people carry on watching for.
Your band?
Riddles.
Riddles.
Yeah, in there.
Yeah.
But live, it was all right. You know,
Yeah.
'cause I like live music anyway. But
I can just see,
Anyway.
a regime like this seeing jazz was predominantly a black genre when it was
true,
sort of coming out of, from America.
Yeah.
Looking at that, just because there was obviously horrendous racism at that point, wasn't there?
yeah, it's a good point. Good point.
You're banned. Khrushchev wanted the Soviet people to be happy, but not like that, or that, or that. Young people began enjoying abhorrent Western pop culture. Son, remove that disgusting imperialist apparel at once. Shut up, Dad. You can't tell me what to do. Well, would you look at that? Turns out you can tell me what to do. The West had initially liked the cut of Khrushchev's jib, but world events soon soured relations even more. The two sides were spying on each other a whole lot throughout the Cold War. The KGB had spies and informants in nearly every aspect of Western life and government, so much so that whenever the US tried to send spies into the Soviet Union, the KGB were usually ready to arrest them on the spot. Members of the Manhattan Project aided the Soviet Union in acquiring the bomb. Some American officials believed they were on the wrong side. I'll sell you 3 secrets for $5 million. Okay. Go ahead. The Allies are digging a tunnel under East Berlin to tap your communications. There's an American agent living at this address in Moscow, and sometimes, when I'm home alone, I like to put on my wife's dresses, sit in the corner, and cry for hours. Very interesting. In America, fear took hold during the Red Scare and the McCarthy trials. American values imploded as fear of communism collided with freedom of thought and expression, and communist kind of became a buzzword thrown around to describe anything people didn't like. Hollywood? Communist. Your next door neighbor's dog? Communist.
It's like nowadays.
I know.
Everyone's just called a Nazi, aren't they? If they've got any opposing view whatsoever, you're a Nazi. Nazi. It's dangerous just putting everything under an umbrella term like that, isn't
it's
it?
really,
When the grocery store cashier asks if you need a bag when you clearly can't carry 10 tubs of baconaise in your hands, communist. But one area in particular where the US had an edge over the Soviet Union was in its espionage technology. In particular, U-2 spy planes flew across Russia carrying out surveillance from the skies. There was a nasty incident in 1960 though, when one was shot down and Khrushchev was furious. Who the hell is this? He's a high-altitude weather enthusiast who flew off course. Okay, that sounds plausible. Wait a minute. Why does he have a gun and a poison needle? Because he's a very naughty high-altitude weather enthusiast. But much to America's concern, the Soviet Union appeared to be ahead in the space race. Everyone freaked out when Russia launched the world's first satellite, and then they actually sent a man into space. Even worse, there also appeared to be a missile gap in the Soviets' favor, and Khrushchev was so confident that he even allowed the US to set up a technology exhibit in Moscow, attended by a certain Vice President Richard Nixon. Check this out. We have color TV. Yes, but we've been to space and can obliterate you with our massive nuclear arsenal.
What a great idea when you're competing against a country to let them do a technology exhibit, and then everything just goes out the back door and gets taken apart.
Right.
Oh, you got colour TVs? How do they work?
Exactly, yeah.
That's got to be
Walked
what
right
that was.
into it there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Walked right into it.
Check out this vegetable peeler. Tensions increased further when both sides upgraded their atomic bombs to hydrogen bombs. And after West Germany was allowed to join NATO in 1955, Khrushchev set up the Defensive Warsaw Pact, strengthening the military ties between the Soviet Union and its satellite states. In 1960, Americans decided they wanted a new president who would be tough on communism, so they elected John F. Kennedy. The Soviet Union was advancing its technology, but it was also bleeding its coffers dry, and all of the money was going towards the military, not the people. Life under communism was still as hard as ever, and Berlin remained a thorn in the Soviet side. The contrast between the economically prosperous West and the struggling East was clearer day by day, and East Berliners were still able to freely travel to the West. Now, many of them were deciding to stay there. Millions defected to West Germany via West Berlin, causing Eastern factories to lose workers and taking a heavy toll on the economy. Soviet leaders decided this couldn't continue any longer. First, Khrushchev tried this: leave West Berlin, or else. Or else what? Or else, I'll be really mad at you. Yeah, no, we're gonna stay. Listen, man, West Berlin is ours, East Berlin is yours. That's just how it is. Kennedy felt pretty good about his show of American resolve. But wait a second, did you catch that? Let's replay it.
East Berlin is yours.
Uh-oh, Kennedy just told Khrushchev that the USA wouldn't interfere in what the Soviets did with their section of Berlin, so Khrushchev came up with a new idea. We're gonna build a wall, and it's gonna be a big, beautiful wall, and it's gonna keep out all the Mexicans.
I was waiting for that.
It's gonna keep in all the Mexicans. On August 13th, 1961, Berliners woke up to find their city divided into two, with barbed wire and guards blocking the border between East and West. Over time, a wall was constructed throughout the city. Families were torn apart. Thousands would risk their lives escaping over the wall, and hundreds would die trying. To the despair of Berliners, the West were unable to do anything about it, but the wall did put on full display the failure of the communist system. As Kennedy said, democracy is not perfect, but we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in. As part of the agreement between the two sides, US diplomats were still allowed to travel to East Berlin, but suddenly, East Berlin crossing guards started giving them the business, and Kennedy was like, nah-uh. In October, the US rolled tanks up to the crossing point at Checkpoint Charlie as a show of strength. The Soviets did the same, and the two were in a standoff. They stayed like that for 16 hours, and the world braced for nuclear Armageddon. Thankfully though, Kennedy called Khrushchev directly and was like, hey man, this is getting way too hot. How about you back your tanks up by an inch and we'll do the same? Sounds good.
Checkpoint Charlie is one of the most disappointing things to go and see.
Oh, was it?
You kind of expect like a grand border crossing.
Yeah.
Looks like a little toll booth in the middle of the street.
Really? Is that it? Wow.
It's a very iconic spot, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's
Yeah,
very,
Iconic
very-
name as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Checkpoint Charlie. It's been widely used, hasn't it, in films and.
But when you go, you
all
got the
sorts.
Brandenburg Gates and all that. It's a cool city. It
Yeah.
really is a cool
I
city.
really
to
need
visit.
to go to
Yeah.
Berlin. It's on my
Yeah.
list,
Yeah.
definitely.
And you can fly pretty cheap there as well, Dave, because you've got two airports. I think you can fly into like Tegel, I think is one of the airports, real cheap to get into.
I'll do it for a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
weekend at
That's
some
what it is,
point.
that's all you need.
Just need someone to go with.
Go on your own, mate. Go into Das Boot.
Okay, how about you back your tanks up by another inch and we'll follow suit? Alright, hey, you want to do another inch? And they both very slowly inched away from the apocalypse. Phew, let's hope that's the biggest crisis of my presidency. It wasn't.
That was great.
That was part one.
Brilliant again.
Yeah. I didn't forget how good Oversimplified was, but it's not been in the forefront of my mind just how well done and comical
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah,
it is. You
Well,
know
that's
what I
some of
mean?
the comedy
value is brilliant, isn't it?
It's really good, isn't it? I mean, that's what really keeps it bobbing along really nicely.
It's
isn't it?
great videos. Absolutely amazing
I mean, the
videos.
information you get is just so clear and concise. But like I say, the comedy element to it as well is
It's quick,
brilliant.
it's concise, it's accurate.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I think during the Cold War, it was either us or the Americans. It may have been an American bomber stationed in Britain was basically given the it was like a doomsday sort of thing. It was basically, once we know that we're going to get nuked, there's nothing we can do about it. So this bomber takes off and nukes Russia, and once it takes off, there's no stopping it, because the implication is, or the assumption is, that America's been nuked or Britain's been nuked.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was something like 2 minutes away from flying once. Everyone was geared up, and it was literally, it was a one-way trip as well. It was literally, you're going just to inflict damage on the Russian side, and it was that close to flying.
Wow.
Yeah,
That sounds
I
grim.
watched the whole thing on that. I may have butchered the history a little bit there, but I watched a thing on it, and it was just,
You've oversimplified it, Dave.
I've oversimplified it and probably got it wrong, but it was like that close
it
to
just
going.
shows, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it was one phone call that stopped it from taking off.
Yeah.
And you think that would have been nuclear Armageddon, because that would have been just going over there to nuke Russia, and then they would have retaliated.
It's
and
just frightening, isn't it? How close you can get to something like that. 'Cause it'd be pretty bad, wouldn't it?
I'm not asked.
I wasn't alive, so I wouldn't have known any better.
Yeah.
It's not my control. Fuck all
Yeah,
I can do
yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
of course it is. Yeah.
I do think, like, capitalism is not perfect, because obviously you can't just have exponential growth into nothing. You can't just have companies keep getting richer and richer and richer. But capitalism does drive industry, it drives innovation. You've got to have an incentive. If everyone earns the same and everyone just gets their basic needs
What's the
met,
incentive to innovate and strive to
Precisely.
be better and invent more things?
You got to know what level. You got to know what level you're on. You're never going to be the CEO of Apple.
no.
You know what I mean? So you know that's out of the question. You're not on that level. But could you be the sales director of a local car manufacturer? Of course you could.
Yeah.
You know.
That's it.
That's achievable. You've got to know what levels you're on.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping you trying to do anything. But yeah, definitely.
But
there's always levels.
Without capitalism, there's not really the incentive, is there, to be the sales director of somewhere or whatever? Because if everyone's just, I know no one's in communism, everyone doesn't just have the same. It's bollocks. It's a myth.
I mean,
isn't
everyone
it?
living in capitalism, that everybody wants to do that. Most people are just happy to get a decent job, just want a decent house,
Pay the
family,
bills.
Yeah,
pay
live
the bills, and
comfortable.
just have a good time.
Have a happy life.
Have a happy life. That's what most people want, isn't it? But you've got to have people that are out there striving to do better and invent
Yeah, you've got
things.
gamblers,
and-
plodders,
Yeah, of course.
farmers, whatever you want to call them.
I don't think you're going to get Elon Musk's through communism, though. You're not going to get people
I get
like that will probably have opposing views to the government, and they'll disappear at some point.
to make that.
But I
much
don't give a
money.
shit about that as well.
Yeah, but people like him are the people who innovate, and that
Maybe.
technology filters. You see
it does.
Tesla's
Yeah,
everywhere now.
It does, but that technology went around in the 70s and we were all still here, weren't we?
Yeah,
That's
No,
true.
I mean,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
60s,
you're
and the
right.
50s and the 40s, and
Yeah, you're right.
you know, we're all still here.
So
Someone
sometimes-
you'll always get that pioneer that brings new ideas in at whatever level you're on. That's why you got to know your level.
Yeah.
And that's where the level of the country is. There might be people now who've got stuff that'll make Apple look like fucking, Toys R Us. It's there might be people out there already.
yeah.
I'm sure there is.
I think they said the
true,
technology
yeah.
with smartphones is already old technology by the time
Yeah.
we get
Yeah,
it.
by the time it's
Because
released,
they
yeah.
shelve technology for smartphones for years.
No, they must do,
so they
mustn't
can
they?
drip feed you till you keep buying
course
a
they
new
do.
one.
Well, now
New
they're
projects
injecting
and
you.
stuff. Yeah.
I've
To know what you're doing.
I've got 2 microchips.
Anyway, it's good, that really good.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that too. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the bell. If you want to go to Bill Image with Dave, don't forget to like and subscribe to us on Instagram, Office Bloke Dave, Office Bloke Daz.
And share some sausage.
And you might be able to win a trip to Berlin with Dave.
Yeah, we can get our bratwurst out and run around.
Catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.